I always believed that betrayal announces itself long before it happens. Subtle distance, small lies, the way someone's eyes stop meeting yours. But now looking back, I realize that sometimes the worst kind of betrayal doesn't appear as a storm. It arrives quietly, like a draft through a window you thought was closed. My name is Daniel, 36, architect, husband of 7 years. I built houses for a living, yet somehow didn't notice my own home collapsing from the inside. The night when everything began still feels strange in my memory. Not dramatic, not emotional, just ordinary. Too ordinary. Emma came home late from her office meeting. Or, at least, that's what she said. I remember hearing her keys at almost 11. I was still awake, sitting in the living room with my laptop open, pretending to work but really waiting for her. When she walked in, her hair was slightly messy, cheeks warm. Not from the cold outside, it was June, but from something else I couldn't define. "Sorry I'm late," she said quickly, avoiding my eyes as she put her bag on the chair. I didn't think anything of it then. She often avoided eye contact when she was tired, but that night, something felt different. I couldn't describe it, but it felt like walking into a room you've been in 1,000 times and suddenly noticing the furniture is slightly moved. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just exhausted," she answered. Too fast, too sharp. That was the first crack, but I ignored it. Over the next week, more cracks appeared. Nothing big, just things, little things, the kind of things you catch in the corner of your eye. She smiled at her phone more. She stepped outside to take calls he didn't want to wake me with. She suddenly cared more about her appearance before going to work. She asked me fewer questions. She laughed less at my jokes. You don't understand these signs when they first appear. You simply tell yourself, she's stressed. She's just busy. This happens in marriage. Don't overthink. And maybe I wouldn't have overthought if it weren't for that one morning. Emma left her phone charging in the kitchen. It vibrated twice in a row. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear I wasn't. But when you're walking past a table and a screen lights up, your eyes naturally catch the name. Matt, just that. A first name. Someone unfamiliar. My stomach didn't twist. My heart didn't jump. Not yet. I just stood there, staring at the screen, waiting to see if it would light up again. It didn't. I walked away, but something stayed inside me, heavy and quiet. That evening, I tried to bring it up gently. I wasn't accusing her. I just asked who Matt was. She froze for a second, tiny, barely noticeable, but I saw it. Then she answered too quickly, much like she had that night she came home late. "Oh, Matt. New guy at work. Started a few weeks ago. Graphic designer. Why? 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 That question always sounds innocent but is never really innocent." I shrugged. "Just saw the name pop up earlier when I walked by your phone." She nodded. "Oh, yeah, he's been helping with the ad proposals." She didn't look at me when she said it. You don't want to suspect the person you love. It feels dirty, like you're betraying them with your thoughts. So I swallowed the doubt. Again. Days passed. Weeks. Emma drifted further away. Conversations grew shorter, touches colder, dinners quieter. Her phone never left her hand anymore. Every night, when she fell asleep with her back turned to me, I stared at the ceiling and repeated the same sentence to myself. You're overthinking. You're imagining things. But the worst part is knowing that a part of me, a quiet, wise, instinctive part, already knew the truth. It was whispering it, soft but insistent. She's slipping away. Still, I held on. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You hold on even when it hurts. You hold on until the truth forces you to let go. And the truth was on its way. I just didn't know that it would break into my life all at once, with a force so brutal I wouldn't recognize myself afterward. I wish I could say that after that night, things improved, that Mia slowed down long enough to look me in the eyes and see the man who had been standing beside her for almost 6 years. But the truth is, she only became harder to reach. like someone slowly fading in a photograph while the background grows sharper. In the weeks that followed, I tried not to panic. I told myself that relationships go through phases, that emotional distance doesn't always mean betrayal. I'd learned enough from my married friends, who spoke more honestly in private than they ever did in front of their wives, to understand that couples sometimes drift before pulling back together. But the feeling in my gut wasn't drifting. It was disappearing. Every morning she woke up earlier than me, and every night she fell asleep on the couch too tired to move. She stopped wearing the perfume I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she used to spray on her wrist just to make me chase the scent with my lips. She stopped asking about my day. She stopped correcting my dumb jokes, a habit she used to have that annoyed me because it meant she was listening. But most of all, she stopped touching me. Not in the dramatic sense. There weren't slamming doors or angry refusals. It was much colder than that, a slow, quiet extraction of affection. She avoided sitting next to me on the couch. She'd pull her hand away a second before mine could reach it, and every time I tried to kiss her, she turned her head just enough to give me her cheek instead of her lips. Small things. But small things become patterns when repeated. I kept telling myself that stress was eating her alive. Deadlines, clients who treated her like a machine, colleagues who dumped their work on her because she wasn't good at saying no, and maybe that was part of it. But stress doesn't make someone hide their phone under their pillow when they never did it before. Stress doesn't make someone get dressed in the bathroom with the door locked. Stress doesn't make someone burst into a fake smile when they see you walk into the room, pretending they weren't just texting seconds earlier. One evening, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. My instinct wasn't to touch it. I've never been that type. But my eyes caught the notification lighting up the screen. Made it home. From a name I didn't recognize. A male name. My chest tightened. But I forced myself not to jump to conclusions. I wanted to believe it was a colleague, a friend, someone harmless. So I acted like I never saw it, but acting didn't change the truth. The next day, she came home smelling like a cologne that wasn't mine. Subtle, but I knew my wife sensed the way I knew her laugh, her footsteps, her breathing while she slept. This wasn't hers, and it definitely wasn't mine. She said she stayed late at work. When I called her office earlier that evening, her coworker told me she'd left hours ago. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't demand answers, because deep down I wasn't looking for proof. I was looking for a reason not to believe what I already knew. I kept hoping she'd notice how quiet I'd become, how slowly I moved around her, as if any sudden motion would make the truth spill out of her like shattering glass. But she didn't notice. Or maybe she noticed and didn't care. I couldn't decide which hurt more. One night I pretended to be asleep when she came home late again. She thought I was unconscious enough not to feel the mattress dip when she sat beside me. I kept my breathing slow and even. Her fingers brushed my shoulder barely, lightly, and for a tiny moment, I thought maybe she was reaching for comfort, or remorse, or something. But then she whispered into the darkness, "Please don't wake up." My stomach dropped so fast I thought I'd be sick. She didn't want me to speak, didn't want me to ask questions, didn't want to explain. Her whisper felt like a confession without words. She fell asleep within minutes. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning she made coffee like nothing was wrong, humming a song she hadn't listened to in years. I watched her move around the kitchen, graceful and effortless, and for a moment I felt like a stranger observing someone he once knew, not someone he still lived with. I realized something terrifying. You don't lose the person you love all at once. You lose them one unspoken moment at a time, and I was almost out of moments. I needed clarity, proof or peace, one or the other. I couldn't keep living in this silent suffocation between suspicion and denial. So I decided to follow her the next time she worked late, not because I wanted to catch her doing something wrong, but because I needed to know whether I still had a wife, or only the memory of one. I had always assumed the worst pain came from not knowing. Turned out, knowing hurt a lot more. For the next few days after that message on her phone, I moved through life like someone watching himself from above. I went to work, nodded at people, answered emails, but my brain replayed every moment with her, looking for clues I'd missed. Every laugh that felt a bit too forced. Every night she went to bed early. Every "I'm tired" said with her eyes somewhere else. And the more I thought about it, the more it felt like the signs had been there for months. I had simply convinced myself not to see them. But what I didn't expect was the anger that started building inside me. Not a loud, screaming anger. A quiet one. Sharp, clean, the kind that makes you look at things differently. When she finally came home late on Friday, the same time she usually grabbed drinks with coworkers, I didn't ask anything. I just watched her. I watched the way she hesitated before kissing me on the cheek, as if she needed half a second to switch personas. I watched the way she avoided turning her phone screen toward me. I watched the way she laughed when I asked how her day was, too quickly, too rehearsed, like she was reciting a script she'd practiced in the car. And something in me clicked. I wasn't imagining anything. That night, I lay next to her in bed. She fell asleep fast. She always did after those late returns. But I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathing, and I felt like I was lying beside a stranger. Around 2 a.m., I quietly slid out of bed and went to the living room. I didn't take her phone this time. I didn't need to. I opened my laptop instead. I didn't know exactly what I expected to find. Maybe evidence, maybe a message, maybe nothing. But I remembered something. Months ago we synced our devices to a shared cloud drive for work documents. And she must have forgotten that. Inside a forgotten sync folder was a single screenshot. One she must have taken accidentally or meant to delete. I opened it. It was a chat. Not explicit. That would have been easier, in a twisted way. This was worse. It was intimate. Her telling him she felt seen by him. Her saying she could talk to him in ways I can't talk to my husband. And the last message, the one that made my chest physically ache. Sometimes I wish I'd met you first. I didn't breathe for at least 10 seconds. And when I did, it felt like my lungs were filled with cold air. I didn't throw the laptop. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. My reaction was horrifyingly calm. I just sat there and realized something. There was no version of this where things went back to normal. Because she wasn't just cheating on me. She had already left me emotionally long before I discovered the truth. I closed the laptop and sat in silence, staring at the dark window. My reflection looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. By the time the sun started to rise, I knew what I had to do. Not confront her. Not beg for honesty. Not try to fix something she had already stopped caring about. No. I needed to finally choose myself, something I realized I hadn't done in years. And the terrifying part, deep down, it felt like the right thing to do. I didn't sleep the night before the confrontation. My body shut down, but my mind stayed awake, replaying every detail of the last months. Every late return, every sudden change in her tone, every half-truth she tried to pass as casual conversation. And the worst part was that I had seen it all happening, and I still let myself believe there was a version of the story where she was innocent. I left the apartment early in the morning. The sun hadn't even risen yet. The streets were empty, cold, and silent. It matched the way I felt. I didn't want a scene, or screaming, or a dramatic exit. I wanted something cleaner, something final, something that wouldn't leave space for doubt to crawl back in. When I reached our apartment again, she was sitting at the kitchen table, like she always did on mornings when she tried to pretend nothing was falling apart. She was scrolling her phone, sipping coffee, wearing the same robe she used to wear when things between us were simple. It almost worked on me, almost forced me to stop, turn around, and postpone everything again. But the moment she lifted her head and saw me, her face changed, not into the expression of someone who was afraid of losing the person they loved, but into the face of someone who had been caught, who was calculating the next excuse. She said my name quietly, like she was testing whether she still had the right to say it. I didn't answer. I sat across from her at the table and placed my phone in front of me. I didn't need to show her the evidence. I knew she already knew what was on it. The messages, the calls, the nights she said she was with friends, all of it. I know, I said. Just that. No shouting, no accusations, no dramatic build-up. Her shoulders fell immediately, like she'd been waiting for that moment and dreading it at the same time. She tried to speak, but the first few words were just fragments. I didn't mean, it's not, I can expl. I didn't let her finish. I want you to be honest, I said. This is your last chance to do that. She froze. It wasn't fear. It was hesitation, the kind that comes from deciding whether to lie again or finally stop. And she chose wrong. It was only once, she whispered. A mistake. I was confused. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled through my teeth, slow and tired, like the air leaving my lungs was the last hope I'd been holding onto. It wasn't once, I said. And you weren't confused. She didn't argue. That silence was the confirmation I didn't even need anymore. So I told her everything. Everything I had seen, everything I had figured out, every piece of the puzzle she didn't know I had. The parking lot, the text she forgot to delete, the night she said she was too tired to talk, and the worst part, the way she looked at him in those messages. Not with passion, not with excitement, but with the same softness she once used with me. The softness I thought belonged only to us. When I finished speaking, she covered her face with her hands. Not because she regretted what she had done, but because she regretted getting exposed. I didn't want to lose you, she said from behind her palms. You already did, I answered, and I stood up. She followed me to the hallway, still talking, still reaching for any thread she could pull to bring me back. Promises, apologies, versions of the story I knew she was inventing on the spot. I didn't respond to any of them. I packed my backpack with the things that mattered. Not much, some clothes, documents, my laptop, and a few objects that still carried meaning. The rest I left on purpose. I didn't want a single reminder of this version of my life. She blocked the doorway at one point, tears on her cheeks, whispering my name like a plea. I didn't push her. I just looked at her with the kind of calm that comes only when you've crossed a line you won't step back from. Move, I said quietly, and she did. I stepped out of the apartment and closed the door behind me, not slamming it, because I didn't want the sound to follow me. I just let it click into place. A small final sound that marked the end of everything we had built. On the stairs, I finally stopped. My legs felt heavy, like they were trying to convince me to turn around. But I forced myself to keep going, step by step, until I reached the street. The morning air hit me like cold water. It woke me up in a way nothing else could. I didn't look back at the building. Not once. I walked forward, the straps of my backpack cutting into my shoulders, my chest hollow but steady. It wasn't relief. It wasn't victory. It wasn't even sadness anymore. It was clarity, the kind that comes when the truth finally stops being an enemy and becomes a guide. I didn't know where I was going next, but for the first time in a long time, I knew where I wasn't going, and that was enough. That was my ending with her, quiet, final, honest, the only way it could end.